Every dollar in your pocket was born as a debt. Every digital number in your bank account is a liability, not an asset. If everyone, and I mean every single person, corporation, and the government itself, paid off their loans tomorrow, the entire US dollar system would cease to exist by Thursday. It would simply evaporate into the data stream it came from. This is not some abstract economic theorem. It is the fundamental rule of the fractional reserve and fiat system. We are not just participants in this economy. We are trapped in a vicious, infinite cycle that requires us to borrow more currency into existence just to keep the lights on and pay the interest on the debt that already exists. This is the math that Wall Street does not want you to understand. This isn't about fiscal policy. It's about exponential mathematics. The national debt is $34 trillion. Interest payments are now costing us $1 trillion a year. That means the first $1 trillion we borrow every year doesn't buy infrastructure or military defense or social security. It just pays for the privilege of borrowing the previous trillions. This isn't just a national debt problem. It's a total debt problem. When you take a mortgage or a car loan, your bank doesn't lend you their money. They lend you money they typed into existence, leveraging the fractional reserve rules that allow them to create 10 digital dollars for every one physical dollar they might, maybe, have on deposit. They don't want you out of debt. They need you in a perpetual state of renting your currency from them forever. But here is where the logic fails the math. This system must inflate to survive. In a debt-based system, inflation isn't a bug. It is the central operating system. It's the mechanism used to dilute the real value of the debt over time. If the currency supply stops growing, the entire structure defaults. But if it grows too fast, the purchasing power of your life savings is destroyed. They are walking a mathematical tightrope over an inflationary volcano. There is a mathematical point of no return, and according to the latest data, we passed it last Tuesday. I'm not being dramatic. I'm analyzing the debt to GDP ratio. When a nation is so heavily leveraged that the interest on its debt is larger than its total economic growth, it enters a phase known as debt service collapse. Every new dollar borrowed now produces negative real growth. You are seeing this reality reflected in the shadow numbers of the economy. The massive, unseen deleveraging happening in private markets, while the nominal price of the S&P 500 is kept afloat by a handful of inflated tech stocks. The math is simple. The game is over, and the house has already lost, but they are still dealing the cards because you are still playing. This is the classic definition of a financial structure that requires new inflows of capital to pay off previous investors. The Federal Reserve isn't fixing the problem. They are the new money being injected into the infinite loop to pay the interest, buying their own government's debt to prevent a total auction collapse. But the real crime isn't the inflation of the currency. It's the bail-in mechanism. In 2008, the government bailed out the banks with your future tax money. When the next default wave hits the shadow market, they won't just take your tax money. They are legally allowed to seize the deposits in your bank account to stabilize their defaults. Your money on deposit is technically a loan to the bank, and they can and will freeze it when the structure begins to fail. Bitcoin was created specifically as an exit to this infinite loop. It is decentralized, immutable wealth that cannot be inflated and cannot be bailed in. That is why they attack it, because it represents true digital ownership that exists outside of their controlled debt structure. They need you locked into their programmable dollar, their CBDC trap, because they can't survive without your assets on their ledger. So, if the debt can never be repaid, what happens to the people holding the bill? This is the final question they never ask. When the math collapses, there will be no bailout that can save the $40 trillion of wealth held in retirement accounts and traditional assets. There will be a massive, chaotic restructuring, a controlled demolition of paper wealth. My name is the Bull. The system isn't broken. It is performing exactly as its design requires. I'm showing you the blueprint so you don't build your future on a foundation of unpayable debt. Like the video if you want to know the one indicator I watch to track how close we are to the bail-in moment. I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp, stay cold, and exit the loop before they close the doors.